Hey there, cats and kittens, and welcome back to another episode of the MonkeyBoy Presents DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss. And today is issue number 28, Sinestro. And this is a great character, I think. He's a wonderful villain. He's a great origin story as well. You know, he was a Green Lantern once upon a time who, you know, kind of fell from grace. The power corrupted him. It took him over. And was kicked out of the Corps, and then found a different source of his power. It's really, really cool, actually, and this figure is gorgeous. I love the color scheme, I love his skin tone, that purple skin tone. We'll get into that. Anyway, first up, as always, the magazine, which will tell us pretty much everything we need to know about Sinestro. This one should go pretty fast, though. There's really not a whole lot to talk about with him. It's pretty simplistic, honestly. And then, we'll look at the figure itself, giving you the good, the bad, and the ugly, as always. Great character, great figure, very little to complain about with this one. A few little things, though. We'll cover that in just a little while. Sit back, relax, please enjoy issue number 28 of the DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss, Sinestro. First up, the character section. It's here that we find Sinestro is from a planet known as Korrigar, far out in the galaxy, and he was an anthropological archaeologist who was one day working on a dig site when all of a sudden a green glowing meteorite crashed nearby. Sinestro, of course, became a member of the Green Lantern Corps and quickly rose through the ranks, eventually becoming known as the greatest of all the Green Lanterns. Sinestro learned, shortly after being inducted into the Corps, that the beings who had killed Gosgotha were known as the Quardians. After learning that there was actually a weakness in the Green Lantern Corps' power, Sinestro became fascinated by it and was secretly studying this yellow power. Sinestro was also put in charge of training the first ever human Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. We also learned that one of the very first missions the two ever embarked on were to bring down a being known as Atrocitus. Now this guy, of course, would later become the first Red Lantern. After Hal had become a Green Lantern in his own right, he started to notice that Sinestro wasn't behaving very properly, and actually returned to his home planet of Korrigar to discover that Sinestro was ruling the planet with an iron fist, and that the populace was terrified of him. So, after being taken down by his own pupil and being stripped of his powers by the Guardians of the Universe, Sinestro returned to Quard and actually started to rule the Quardians and harnessed this yellow power in a yellow ring that was forged for him. The next couple of pages just go on to talk about the fact that Sinestro became one of the most feared villains in the DC Universe, not just taking on the Green Lantern Corps on more than one occasion, but also taking on the Justice League of America, the Justice Society of America, tangling with other heroes like Green Arrow. He even served for a little while with the villainous group known as the Secret Society of Supervillains. Sinestro eventually met up with the being known as Parallax, the same being that had once taken over Hal Jordan, and basically forged an alliance with it and created his own corps of fear-based yellow lanterns, known as the Sinestro Corps. Next up, we take a look at some of Sinestro's classic storylines. First up, we have Tales of the Green Lantern Corps Annual number 2. And this special issue of the Green Lantern Corps is dedicated to Sinestro. We find him imprisoned in a science cell on Oa, and he is telling stories to the inmate in the cell next to him, telling stories of the Green Lantern Corps and how they have caused more chaos than good across the universe in an effort to convince this other inmate to help him break out. And in the end, he does, and Sinestro is once again unleashed upon the universe. Next, we have the Green Lantern Corps, issues 217 to 224. And this basically picks up where the annual special edition left off, where the Green Lantern Corps is pursuing the newly escaped Sinestro. They eventually capture him after this epic battle where his replacement from the planet Korrigar, the new Lantern from that sector, Katmatui, actually defeats him. He is sentenced and imprisoned, and actually this issue also introduced Parallax for the very first time. Finally, we have Green Lantern, the Sinestro Corps War. And this is the story that finds Sinestro creating his own corps. The Sinestro Corps, he recruits such evil beings from across the galaxy as the evil cyborg Superman, the parallel Earth evil version of Superboy, Superboy Prime. He even recruits Scarecrow from Gotham City. It's actually a beautifully illustrated story, epic in scale, and sees Sinestro as this cunning, manipulative fear-monger. It's really, really cool. Next, a quick look at some of Sinestro's allies and enemies. In the first page, we of course have the being made of fear, Parallax. The next couple pages feature a nice mix of ally and enemy. Sinestro's iconography section takes a look at the other members of his newly formed Sinestro Corps. We get to look first at the sentient virus known as Despotolus. We meet Lisa Dirac, who's the keeper of the Book of Fear. Archillo, who is basically the Sinestro Corps' drill instructor. We also meet a character known as Amon-Sur. Now, he is the son of Abin-Sur, the man who gave his ring to Hal Jordan. One of the creepiest Yellow Lanterns, in my opinion, is the being known as Crib. And finally, one of my favorite villains in the DCU, the hyper-intelligent, parasitic, mind-controlling space starfish known as Starro. And lastly, the original thinking section continues the DC timeline with Part 19, Decline and Rebirth. It's in this section that we learn the Spectre was the cause of the 10 plagues in Egypt, and also was the power behind the parting of the Red Sea. We also learn that in 1200 BC, the goddess Artemis traveled to Earth and took the souls of valiant women who had been murdered by evil men and recreated them as the Amazons of Themyscira. We also learn that in 1175 BC, the Atlanteans tried to take over the surface world again. Here we have Sinestro. Another wonderful figure in the line, honestly. Another great villain. Nice to have someone from beyond the Batman, Superman mythos. Really love the color scheme of the Sinestro Corps as well. The black and yellow is really just a striking color scheme, and it looks great here. The design of the costume is wonderful as well. It looks very aggressive. The collar is really nicely detailed too. You can see there's a white trim around that collar, which is wonderful. The purple on his skin is exactly the right tone. He even has that extremely high hairline like Sinestro does. His eyes are also black and yellow. It's a really nice touch. You'll see that a little better in the picture section here in just a second. The gold on his lantern is also metallic as well, and it's pulled off very nicely here. I have some minor criticisms of him, one of which, of course, is the logo on his chest. As nice as it is, it's a decal. It's the first one so far. However, this would have proven to be extremely difficult to paint, so I could see why they went with the decal. It's not quite like the Green Lantern logo. That's a much simpler design when you compare it to this. But talk about some of the other minor little complaints I have about this figure, but overall, I think he's fantastic. It's really, really wonderful. Better pictures here in just a second. Sinestro stands atop the DC logo, and on the underside of the base is his name along with a serial number. And of course, you can't have Sinestro without having Hal Jordan. Now let me start off by saying that I really dig this figure, and I'm really glad they went with the Sinestro Corps uniform for him instead of his classic blue and black outfit. For one, I think it would have been a little bit too dark for the character, and I was never really crazy about it either. He always looked like a court jester or something to me in that outfit, so I love this choice for the costume. It's striking, it's powerful looking, it's a great contrast with the yellow and the black. Let's see, we'll go right in and start with the good. The color scheme, the costume, the pose is really great. Love his face. It's especially nicely detailed. He has ridges in his brow, the really high hairline, even his hair kind of flips off to the one side. I love the buttons on his cuffs on both arms. Love the shading of the figure. His eyes are really cool too. He has those yellow pupils with, you know, the black eyes. It's really, really nice. And the lantern is that nice metallic gold. It's a great looking figure overall. The bad. Alright, here's where he loses some points for me. Like the Green Lantern before him, his ring is nothing more than a simple little blotch of yellow paint on his finger. Now, I know that seems like a piddly little complaint, but you'll see here coming up soon, we're going to do some of the other lanterns. They actually managed to detail the rings, so I don't know. I mean, even if it just looked like it was a ring shape instead of just that blotch of paint, you know, that little sort of dollop on his finger, I don't know. It just looks lazy to me somehow. Also, he's missing the Sinestro Corps logo on his left arm. The band for it is there, but the logo is absent. I mean, if they're doing a decal on the chest, why not a little decal on the arm? But again, minor little nitpick. Also, the only other major criticism I have is the lantern itself. If you look at the Green Lantern Hal Jordan one, it looks as though it's glowing from the inside. On Sinestro's, there's no such detail on it at all. It's just that metallic gold all the way around. It would have been nice if they had had something in the center of that lantern to kind of give that effect like the Green Lantern one did. I mean, they already went ahead with a decal on the chest, which is a minor nitpick of mine. You know, I said before, it's such a detailed logo, it would have been very difficult to paint, so I don't really fault them too much for the decal logo. But if they're going to go ahead and do a decal on the chest, why not do a decal on the lantern and make it look like it's glowing or something? You know, a minor nitpick, but it's there. The ugly. The only things to watch out for on this one are, well, is really the lantern. Don't want to pick it up by that. It's the absolute weakest point on the figure. It'll snap right out of his hand if you're not careful, just like Hal's will. But overall, I really, really dig this figure. He looks great next to Hal on the shelf. You'll see when we get to some of the other Green Lantern figures, he looks really awesome, you know, staring them down. We even get more of the Sinestro Corps later on, and you'll get to see him with some of his teammates. So it's a great figure, really nice to have another villain in the line, a villain that's not Batman related, and yeah, very pleased with this one all around. I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. Thank you very much for tuning in yet again. Stay tuned for a quick teaser trailer for the next figure in the line, issue number 29. And again, another villain. Very excited about this one. So I hope you guys enjoy that. I, of course, am your host, the MonkeyBoy, aka Jay to his friends. Thanks for watching.